Hey, and welcome to episode 124 of Meeple to Meeple. It is Growing the Circle, hosting board game events beyond the player count. As always, I'm PJ, and today I'm taking a little inspiration from our good friend, the Greek philosopher Aristotle, who said that man is by nature a social animal. And everyone who listens to this show, all of us in the gaming community, we are all social animals. And who best to talk about creating events that are so social? There's so many people, you can't even host one board game, is my good friend Jonathon. Jonathon, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing great, PJ. Thanks for having me on today. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it. It's been a while since we've had a chat, so I'm kind of excited about this topic. We were talking a little bit before recording, and I was like, I was not on the same page as you.
Hey,
Not
that's why we had that 5 minutes before.
right,
So,
not surprising for those of you listening. I thought we were going to talk about party games. That's not what we're talking about. This is Jonathan's got an interesting story, and I'm really excited to hear about this. So the concept is hosting events, not a game night at 6 or 7 players, right? You want to do a bigger thing, right? That's what we're going to talk about.
correct. Yeah. So I love hosting people, whether that's a dinner party or whatnot, and then of course I love board games. So any chance that I can do to like combine the two, it's great. I get to make some good food, get to have a lot of people over, play a lot of good games, and oftentimes you get beyond a player count that a typical box
Yeah.
has. So a typical game night, we might have 4, 5, 6 people, and I can kind of grab any game behind me off the shelf, and it just works. It's within the player count. But when you start getting to 6+ people, you can play party games, or you can kind of focus in and try and do some event. And so these events that I'm talking about, we just hosted a board game Olympics where we had a bunch of people over at the house. We split into 4 teams and we competed against each other for trophies and points and gave out prizes at the end. So, a lot of fun. And then, we've done smaller things like a little unmatched tournament. We've hosted Big Blood on the Clocktower night.
Sure.
So anything, that's kind of what I'm talking about here when we're talking about an event or a gaming event beyond this player count that's just on the box. You need to kind of get creative and think about, hey, how can I bring all these people together? How can I get
Right.
them to have fun? How can I get them to play these games and have a good time?
Right.
So,
That kind of reminds me. So Ralph Waldo Emerson, he said that the ornament of a house are the friends that frequent it. Right? How good
yeah.
is that? So the friends that frequent your home are the ornaments of your house. And I want you to tell me about your ornaments. Tell me about how many people are there's like 3 events that you want to talk about specifically. You just mentioned them.
Yeah.
How many people were at them, and where did they come from? Because they didn't all. It's my understanding they didn't all come from the same circles. Tell me a
Correct. Yeah.
little bit
So
about how did that work? How did that work out?
yeah. So I'm sure you've seen like a Hallmark movie where the tree is beautifully, it's all the same ornaments or whatnot. I grew up with ornaments all over the tree. We had Star Wars in this section. We had the nativity scene in the middle. We had little snowmen over here. And that's kind of what these gaming events are like. We've got ornaments or friends from all different walks of life. So the 3 events that I mentioned, like the clock tower night, 10, 12 people, something like that. The unmatched tournament that we held was right around the same number, 10 or 12. And then the biggest one that we just did was the Board Game Olympics event. We had 18 people over at our house
Oh,
from kind of 4 different groups of the people that myself and my wife knew, and some even friends of friends. And they were just over at our house for like 6 hours and played a bunch of games. So the way each of these events has kind of worked, like my personal game group is not 18, 10 people large. I've got 4 people that I play games with, but they also have people that they play games with,
right.
or they have
Yep.
friends that are maybe interested in games. And so we just extend the invite to the people that we play games with. So those 4 or 5 people, and then they bring along their spouses and they bring along some friends of friends. And so we've got like kind of my 2 game groups, will say, coming to this event along with their spouses, their friends. So now we've kind of got, a couple of mixtures coming in. And then on my wife's side, her coworkers come, their spouses, they bring some friends. And so you've got this nice mix of my wife's friends and their friends, and then
Yep.
my friends and their friends. And a lot of these people have never met before.
Right.
So when we get to these big gaming events, it's crucial to kind of do a little icebreaker, something fun to kind of kick things off. And name tags. Name tags are very important for these larger things. So
Name
that's
tags,
kind of what
people.
those ornaments look like. Yeah,
Nice.
yeah, you
Nice.
need name tags.
So I don't want to discount the two smaller events, but we've really dove into it. So I want to explore this Olympics, especially with these people from these groups from different backgrounds, different avenues of your and your wife's life. How was it introducing everyone together? And I don't mean like formal introduction, but just like you said, not everyone was a gamer. Talk to me about
Yeah.
like what's the first hour look.
Yeah, yeah. So I spent a lot of time planning this event, and
Okay.
I'd previously hosted the two other events that I've talked about and some other smaller stuff. And one thing that you learn about hosting anything is it's never going to go perfectly how you plan it. And as gamers, when you host a game night, you really want to play a game that works well with four players, and then somebody drops out. Well, now you're kind of up a creek without a paddle, and now you've got to switch games or figure out something. And so those are some of the things that I learned from the previous events that I'd hosted. And so I knew this one, I did like so much math, so many, like I had scribbles on papers, and these games are good for these player counts. And if we have
Sure.
16 people come, it's like the perfect number, because then you have four teams of four and four tables with four players, and it just all works. That's not what happened. We had,
No.
18 people, uneven teams. We had people coming late, leaving early. And so I kind of had to make sure the games we played and the things we picked were able to adjust player counts on the fly and make that all work. But to get back to your question about, hey, what did that first hour look like? I actually have a couple things from that event because it was kind of recent, and I'll show them here. So the thing that I'm holding up first is this Board Game Olympics schedule that we printed off and we hung it up. So it's got kind of a timetable of everything that's going to happen, from people arriving to the games and that we're going to play. And it's even got a QR code at the bottom with like the how to play links in case people,
What?
hadn't played the game before. I spent a good chunk of time on this. Um,
Wow.
but the very first thing we did, I knew people weren't going to all show up at 2 o'clock when, the
Right.
event started. So
Right.
the as people showed up, we filled a baby bottle with dice, and it was just a guess. As you come in, write your name on a name tag, put that on because we're going to
Mm-hmm.
need that. All
Right.
these people from all over the place, so you got to have your name tag. And then once you've done that, take a guess at the dice, throw something down, throw a number down. How many are in that bottle? Just something fun to kick things off, and then it was just a little bit of small talk. We were just hanging out, chatting, kind of introducing the groups. And perfect fashion, all my wife's friends showed up right on time, and only one of mine did. The rest of them were all late. So, he's hanging out there with a bunch of people in the medical field, and I'm like, don't worry, like the rest of people are coming or more in line with us. Um, lot, so kind of a nice flow there, and then as people all got there, we got the name tags on. I actually created a PowerPoint that I had projected up on the TV with, kind of welcome to the Board Game Olympics. I had one friend, well, I guess it was a friend of a friend that came, and he was worried when he got the invite from our friend Luis, like, am I able to go to this thing? Like, how much do I have to pay at the door? Is it at a convention center? Because I threw together a little graphic and stuff, and I guess
Uh-huh.
it looked a little too official.
Yep.
But really, it was just excuse to have people over at the house playing games and having a good time.
I
So
mean, I'm
everybody's
already
there.
I'm already intimidated. PowerPoints, QR
Oh,
codes, like you are fancy, sir.
I do what I can. I tried to think of everything I could to like streamline the process, and even still, like that list that I showed earlier, like the second half of it, kind of all got scrapped. We had to
Right.
make some adjustments near the end. Just how things go. But yeah, once everybody was there, had the name tags on, I threw up a PowerPoint with a bar graph that went across the screen, and it said, we're going to split into teams based on how much of a gamer are you. So it was like
Oh.
beginner on one side, advanced on the other, and then I populated this graph with images that you may or may not recognize being in the hobby. So most of us in the hobby are going to recognize every image on the screen. At
Right.
the one side, the beginner side, it was, Monopoly, Uno, as you kind of went across, it was Catan, Carcassonne, and then as you kept going, then you had like the Board Game Geek logo, you had Rodney Smith, you got some more heavy
Oh, I
stuff
see.
there.
Yeah.
And so I had everybody line up just in our living room. This was just at our house, so lined up in our living room along that graph of sorts, and then I had bags with different colored meeples in them. And so then I just handed a bag as I went down the line. And so the first four people all pulled from the same bag, pulling different teams. And then the next four pulling different teams. And so what happened is all these people got divvied up into teams that were roughly equal skill level or roughly equal board game proficiency. Like
Oh,
all the
sure.
all the beginners weren't accidentally on one team, all the advanced
Right.
people weren't accidentally on one team. And I did have some friends that were like, hey, I really want to be on a team with the people I know. And so we kind of rigged the bags a little bit there, but the teams pretty much ended fairly evenly. The final scores were all pretty close, so I was pretty proud of that. But once we got through the teaming part, the splitting up into teams, everybody came up with a fancy name for their team, just something fun and goofy.
Right.
We had like the Four Horsemen and the GOP and just
Right.
all kinds of wacky stuff. And then at this point, we've kind of done a little bit of small talk. We've split into teams. The teams are starting to know each other, but we're still mixing those four different groups. And so the very first thing that we did was we did a giant team versus team game of Monikers. So
Oh,
the reason I
yeah.
chose Monikers is you can play it infinite player count. You can just adjust the rules a little bit there. Because typically it's a one team versus one team. We ended up having all four teams playing in the same game, so we just minimized the time that you have to give clues. That way, every team's involved.
Mhm.
And if you've never played Monikers before, the reason I chose this game is it shares a lot of similarities to games that we grew up playing as children. So,
Sure.
like, a lot of people are going to recognize charades. That's part of Monikers. They're going to recognize Fishbowl or Celebrity. Those are some other
Mhm.
names of very similar games. And if you've never heard of any of those, the rules are super simple. You pull a card, you give a clue, and you're trying to get your team to guess as many of those clues correctly as you can. And what makes this such a good game for this is I came up with an acronym before this for a game that you want to have at one of these events. And the acronym I came up with was FEEL. You want it to be familiar, you want it to be easy to learn, you want it to encourage interaction, and you want it to have laughs. So FEEL, familiar, easy to learn, encourage interaction, and then laughs. And Monikers, I think, did that. We had people giving all kinds of goofy clues. The teams are laughing, they're bonding. And so after we got through that, now the teams kind of know each other. They're feeling good. They know people on the other teams. They've seen them give clues. They've seen how they laugh, how they just goof around and have a good time.
Right.
And then so from there, then we split off into some of the more like serious games. We ended up having four tables going throughout the house of different games, and you divvied up with your team and said, hey, I want to go play the classic game of Ticket to Ride. Hey, I know that one. I'm going to be good at that. I want to play like the wacky game of Cosmic Encounters. I'm going to go do that. And then you sent somebody off, and then from there, the rest of the night just rolled on. We had make your own pizzas. We had a Kahoot trivia night. So it was a lot of fun. But that foundation of introducing everyone and having like a little icebreaker game of sorts was key.
That is incredible. So that's feel. That is feel. I love that. Familiar,
Yeah.
easy, encouraging player interaction, and
Yeah.
laughs. Wow.
Yep.
That's really great. We definitely need to pass that on to everyone. That's a great way to think about structuring an event with a large group of friends. And I kid you not, you really segued this beautifully. You segued this beautifully.
Perfect.
So Maya Angelou once said that people will forget what you say, but they rarely will forget how you make them feel.
Oh yeah.
And I was really thinking about that in the context of this episode. It's like, one of the things that I think about when I have people over, either for a game night or a family over for the weekend to spend the weekend with us, is I want them to feel comfortable. I want them to feel at ease. and I want them to feel good when they walk out the door and have fond memories,
Oh,
even if they
yeah.
don't remember a word I said. Which, let's be honest,
Yeah.
everyone who listens to this podcast, y'all don't remember anything I say, but I think y'all probably have some sense of how this podcast makes you feel. So thank you, man.
Yeah.
That was a lot. Now, to be fair, you had 18 people in your home, which
Yep.
that kind of that would never happen in my home. My wife would never go for that many people, but that is absolutely crazy. So what about after? Okay, so you had 4 tables, you had 4 different games going on. I'm assuming there was like a next or a final stage. I'm interested in some of the games that
Yeah.
you had playing, and I'm really interested in some of the people who were not gamers. How did they
Yep.
take to the event? I'm really interested in how they felt, like, to be honest.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
this is a board game podcast, so let's talk about the games that were played. Yeah, tell me a little bit more about the progression of the night, some of the games that hit the table, and some of the feelings people shared.
Yeah. So I'll hit the feelings part first. A little jump to the end, I guess, of the night.
Okay,
We got great feedback on the event. People were like, "This was a lot of fun. Like, way more fun than what I was expecting." Hey, that I'll take it. I'm glad they were enticed enough or curious enough to come over, even though they thought it was going to be a mediocre time, and then it ended up
sure.
being a great time. So I'll take that every time. A lot of them were like, "Hey, this is going to be an annual thing, right?" And
Hmm,
yep, we'll do it again next year. It'll be every year. This was just our trial run. So
right,
overall, like great feedback. And I mentioned the one friend earlier who um, thought that it was like an official convention and pay at the
sure,
door and like an official like nope, it was just a casual thing. We are just having fun. He had a great time. um, and then to kind of segue back to more of the games that we played and the non-gamers versus gamers, how
right,
everyone felt. So on the one end of the spectrum, I've got one friend who is super competitive, plays lots of heavy games all the time. So he's playing Lacerdas, he's playing, War of the Ring, top notch. If it's not like a 6 out of 5 on BGG on the complexity, he's not touching it, kind of a thing. I mean, he plays
nice,
lighter games too, but so on one end we've got him, on the other end we've got people who, you know, we've maybe had over and we've played just something light, something quick, after dinner. So on the one end, the friend who was kind of heavy was like, "Man, I was hoping this would go longer. Like I wanted it to be a
right,
longer event. We were there for
right,
6 hours, but he was like, I wanted
right,
to play like 3, 4 more games, and I wanted to hit some more of those heavy ones." And so it kind of segues us into the games that we played. I had the day split into medium long games and then short games.
right.
And so we ended up playing short games and medium games. We did not get our second like long game in that I had planned. We had to cut that
Okay,
from the schedule just due to timing stuff. But for each of these things, since I had 4 tables going, and since I had all these groups of people, gamers, non-gamers, the games that I picked all kind of fall into the medium or light category. They're all games that could be finished in like 45 to 60 minutes, quick to teach. The rules videos that I found, and if I'm teaching the game, like it can be taught in less than 10 minutes,
right,
and it's easy enough to learn. So for each of these things, we had 4 categories since we had the 4 tables. One was classic games, and so the classic game that we had for our first like longer game, the medium long games, was Ticket to Ride. That's a people. I think that the people who played that, they ended up finishing first because all 4 of them knew Ticket to Ride. They knew how to
yeah,
play it. They had never they didn't need touch the rules over video. They just jumped right in, and we
good.
had the games all set up and ready to go. So
Oh,
I
good.
mean, they were done, and then they were just walking around like kind of checking out the other games that were going on as they kind of wrapped up, and we had snacks and people were hanging out just chatting. So we had the classic game Ticket to Ride.
Okay,
We had a strategic game of Cyclades. That was our more heavy game for the day.
that's kind of a jump from Ticket to Ride. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it's a big jump, and then the other 2 games that I'll mention fall within that, like in
Okay.
between those two, because
Okay.
I knew I was having gamers come, so I wanted to have a heavier game, but still
Right.
something that's accessible. And then I wanted to have the rest of them are more medium to easier games that people can just pick up. And so those other 2 games that we had within that section were Cosmic Encounter, which fell into our chaotic game of the
Mhm.
day. And then, because it's just a wacky, super
It
fun
is.
game,
It is.
you're just it's war in space, but then there's all these aliens that just break every rule that exists. And
Every
so when I'm
rule.
teaching that game,
Every rule.
every single rule, yeah, I teach it, and players are like, yeah, okay, I understand. Just like war when we played in elementary school, you flip over
Yep.
the card, highest number wins, easy peasy. And then I'm like, boom, then you'll get this alien that breaks every rule that we just talked about, and their eyes just whoa. So it's fun. And then the last game that we had in that first section was Flamme Rouge, which is a racing, a
Yep.
cycling game. It's similar to Heat, Pedal to the Metal. I think it's either by the same designer, at least shares a lot of similarities, but it's cycling themed, and that kind of fell into the all around category. So I had a
Nice.
classic, a strategic, chaotic, and then just an all around good game that I just like to throw in
That's
there.
a
And then
good
to kind
group.
of
That's a good group of games considering you had 18 people from heavy gamer to I've never played anything beyond Monopoly since I was a kid.
yeah,
That's a great round of games. Well done, you.
thank you. All the games that I tried to pick with that in mind, that range of I want something
Mhm.
that if you've never played a game before, you can be like, that looks cool. I'm going to try that. And it's easy enough for them to pick up. And then, like, I want to have the people who have played a bunch of games still be interested in, even if they get sent to one of the easier game
Yeah.
tables. And so I tried to, it's a fine line to balance, but I think we did a good job. And I mean, everybody liked it. So, got good feedback. So we'll take it. And then I guess to kind of jump and give you a little snippet of those same four categories, but
Yeah.
for the shorter games that we played. Our classic short game was a Carcassonne,
It's a
so
good one.
another classic. Yeah. Our more strategic game was Captain Flip. So yeah, super quick game that you can play. It's still light, very light compared to our last strategic game of Cyclades, but compared to these quicker games, it gives you the most to think about. Like you pull the tile out, which side do I play?
Right.
So Carcassonne for our classic, it was Captain Flip for our strategic
Strategic.
game. Yeah, and then so for the chaotic game, we had Cheating Moth. I don't know if you've played that one before, but
uh
that one, yeah, yeah, get a lot of good laughs out of that one. And then
yep.
the just kind of all around game was a game of Flip 7.
Yeah.
Another, it's just always a hit. So kind of all the games that I tried to pick are those ones that are just gonna work all the time, kind of a thing across all levels of
Yeah.
gamers. And we had that. To give you, I guess, two bits of feedback that we got. Girl who played Flip 7 with us had never played it before. She's
Yep.
definitely on the lower end of things. She previously played, I think, Ticket to Ride in the first round because she knew that game. She had played it before.
Sure.
She loved Flip 7.
Yeah.
Her team ended up winning, so she got a copy. That was one of the prizes, was a copy of Flip 7.
Wow. Yeah.
But she was gonna go out and get it after that. Like she enjoyed it. She went home, played with her husband and stuff.
Yep.
And then on the other side, like the people who played Cyclades had never played before, um, and loved it. They were like, "We want to
Yeah.
play this again. So like, let us know when we can have you over.
Uh-huh.
When we can come back over and we can actually play it
Right.
and sit down." So we had good feedback, I guess, on both ends. People who had
Wow.
choosing games that they had never played before and just trying something out that was fun.
So you brought heavy
Yeah.
gamers to non-gamers and built community, and man, that's a great story. I think your story just kind of culminates everything I've been trying to talk about for the past 4 or 5 weeks. I just think you did it. Here I am
Well,
talking about it, and you're over there just doing it. Like
I'm trying. I'm trying.
that's incredible. Hey, real quick, so let's
Yeah.
contextualize some of this for our listeners, right? You and your wife just
Yep.
relocated to Denver. Has it been a year now?
It'll be a year at the end of the month. So
So, okay.
it's
So you
getting
have
close.
18 people over at the house, all this well-organized, beautiful story that you just
Hmm.
explained to us. All these people came over. You've obviously plugged into a community of gamers. You moved
Yeah.
from St. Louis. Now you're in Denver.
Yep.
You've been there less than a year. You're connected with gamers. You brought non-gamers over and you're building a community all and of yourself. I think that is probably the most remarkable part of this entire story. And it's worth my listeners knowing that you've been doing this under those circumstances.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
That was probably one of the biggest concerns my wife had for the move is how are we going to find friends? How are we going to meet people?
Yep.
And knowing the community the way that I do, I actually wasn't worried. I knew I was like, I can go to game nights at our local game store. I can meet people that way. We're going to get involved in our church. We'll meet people that way. Maybe our
Right.
neighbors, maybe not. I don't know. And so the group that, we kind of met and built over this past year that was at this event was a mixture of all those things. So it was some of my wife's coworkers. So they were also moving from all parts of the country, didn't know anybody. Like having a lot of people in the same boat, that helped a
Yeah.
ton. So all of her friends they were all looking for community too, and they found it with each other. And
Yep.
then they just happened to meet my wife, who is married to me, who's married to all these games. So they got kind of looped in that way.
Yes.
And then in terms of the kind of gamer friends that I met, I it's kind of a funny story. So one of them I met just through he put a message in our friendly local game store's Discord group. Hey, does
Mhm.
anybody want to play War of the Ring with me? And I was like, I just played it recently with one of these other friends that I'll mention. It's a great game. I loved it. I messaged him. Yeah, I'd love to play. So he invites me over. We play games in his basement, and it was great. It was fantastic. And now he's a good friend. He came over. We played multiple other times. My wife was not happy that I was meeting a random guy that I met online in a basement. But everybody that I've met through the hobby, they're all great people. Every
Yep.
single one of them.
Yep.
And so that was kind of one part of this community that I found was just through our friendly local game store. They had a Discord group. I joined it, was trying to get involved that way. Somebody was looking for a friend to play with, and I was also looking. So I said, yeah, count me in. And then on the other side, so you probably know Meeple Mike from Canada.
Yeah.
He's on Instagram.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I met him at Gen Con in person a couple years back. Previously, we had known each other just on Instagram. Anyway, he introduced me to some friends. We've stayed friends, play virtual game nights and whatnot. So this past Gen Con, this past August, I got there, the day before, picking up our badges. We're just hanging out. And so I meet up with Meeple Mike and his friend John, and they had a third friend there. And we got together, played a game of Arcs before the convention started.
Hmm.
And then this friend posted a picture of the game. I posted the same picture. And just randomly, this third friend of Meeple and John reached out to me on Instagram and was like, "Hey, I saw you were, I forget the guy's name. I'm horrible with
Right.
names, so that's why
It's
you got to have
okay.
those name tags."
Yep.
But so he reached out to me and was like, "Hey, I also live in Denver, and you should come over for a Clocktower night. We host them
Awesome.
every month." I was like, "Fantastic!" I used to play
Yeah.
Clocktower all the time when I was in St. Louis, and that's a harder community to find. It just, I don't know, you've got to find people who really organize that. And
Hmm.
so I went over to this guy's house when I got back from Gen Con through a friend of a friend of a friend thing, this whole
Yep.
little chain, and went over there, and there was another couple who had just moved to Denver
Hmm.
looking for friends, and we swapped numbers, hit it off, liked a lot of the same games, and then I started playing games with him a lot, and then all of a sudden
Nice.
he introduced me to this other guy that he met through a little online Facebook group or something,
Yep.
and now we've been getting together to play games. And so we moved across the country, didn't know anybody, and then through just word of mouth, through the community, through circumstances and whatnot, we
Exact. Yep.
managed to find
Absolutely.
all these people, and they were already connected with some people, and so you just kind of start networking from there, and then the circle grows, and then it all comes together, and
Mm.
that's exactly what happens.
That is a
Um,
great love letter to our hobby and our community.
yeah,
That's it. I mean, that's why
yep,
we do this. Because you know. Let's talk about Clock Tower a little bit. I know you host
yeah,
occasionally. You enjoy Clocktower. And we've talked about it. It's not one of my favorite games, but that's because I don't tend to gravitate towards the social deduction aspect
Yeah.
of it. But so, what is the largest Clocktower group you've managed to host since you moved to Denver?
The largest one I've hosted at Denver is just 10 people. The
That's
largest one I've
pretty
hosted,
substantial,
yeah, it was, I mean, it was still, and it was a good chunk of those same people who were at the Board Game Olympics event, a few other, plus or minus, a couple,
right?
kind of that same four pots kind of melting together for that. For me, Clock Tower is, I'll say, like the perfect social deduction game because it has those social elements, but
Hmm.
really it's just a puzzle. And so when you're playing games with people who don't know each other, it's a game that forces you to talk to other people. And so if we jump back to that little F.E.E.L acronym that I came up with,
Right,
familiar, okay? People have heard of social deduction games before. Maybe they've played Secret Hitler or One Night Werewolf. Maybe they've played Mafia at a campfire growing up, something like
right.
that. So they've probably got some sense of that. Being easy to learn, Clock Tower is a lot when it comes to a game with all the different roles.
Hmm.
But at its core, when I teach it, we kind of teach as the game goes, and I say, hey, just focus on your role. That's the only one you need to know. And then as you talk to people, then you can be like, they said they're the mayor. Okay, what does that role do? And you can just
Right.
slowly build from there. And then since it's a game that has a storyteller, typically that's me when I'm doing these like first time games of it. I always encourage them to come and talk to me, and I'll kind of monitor the situation. If I see somebody who's confused or maybe isn't talking to people, I'll kind of pull them to the side and be like, hey, you should go chat with this person, or maybe you should
Hmm.
do this. Do you have any questions about your role? So there's like kind of the easy to learn part. The encouraging interaction, you have to do that in Clock Tower. It's all about
Right.
sharing those puzzle pieces that everybody knows and trying to put them together. And so you're never going to win a game of Clock Tower if you don't talk to people. When I play Clock Tower with people I've never met before, I'll go up to them. I'll say, "Hey, did you learn anything? Like, do you have any information game wise to share?" And then I'll say, hey, how do you like living in Colorado? The conversation kind of switches to this more personal connection. So you've got a little bit of outside the game, you're kind of meeting people, you're getting to know each other. And then the last part, having laughs. We've had some great games of Clock Tower, just goofy things happen. Maybe it's like you read your roll wrong and the demon killed themselves, or
Hmm.
they said the wrong thing and the game ends super quick, or it goes the whole time and somebody really pulled off a great move and it's just a great time.
Yeah.
It's something that we've had great success with in our friend groups, bringing people together and playing that way, because it does do all those things. It introduces people, it
Right.
kind of forces you to interact, and it gives you a framework for that interaction, which
Yeah.
is nice. Yeah.
So I know that it's one of your favorite games. I don't know where it ranks in your personal top whatever,
Yeah,
but I know it's one of your favorites.
it
So
is. It's up there.
I know. I want to ask you, how easy was it for you personally
Hmm.
to get comfortable with being vulnerable? We've been talking about vulnerability a lot lately on the show. How easy was it for you to get comfortable with being vulnerable in a group, to allow yourself to fully enjoy Blood on the Clock Tower? I have a follow up after that.
Okay. Okay. So I guess I'll preface this by saying I don't know, introvert, extrovert. Some days I'm more
Hmm.
introverted, some days I'm more extroverted.
Okay.
Most of the time I fall on the introverted side. I like my little alone time. Um, so when I'm in a big group, I need to have something to keep me going of sorts. When it comes to Clock Tower, that is the framework of the game. That's the puzzle that's trying to be
Right.
solved, and I have to talk to people. I've played Clock Tower at conventions. I've played it with there was a St. Louis Blood on the Clock Tower group that was great, and it was people from all walks of life. I knew some of them outside of that, like we became friends and would host game nights together, not Clock Tower related. But a lot of them I only saw that once a month at the Clock Tower event. Didn't really know them outside of that. And especially the first time I meet them, obviously know nothing about them.
Right.
And so for me, kind of opening up to them, it was opening up to them first in the framework of the game. Hey, I am this role. What are you? Trying to solve the puzzle of the game itself. And
Right.
then as you kind of do that and you start seeing the same people, whether it's game to game, week to week, or even just within the game, night to night, conversation to conversation,
Sure.
then I would start kind of opening up a little bit more. And then it's more of like, hey, that's PJ. That's not the guy who told me he was the monk. That's PJ, the guy who told me he was the monk. It's not just the guy. It's not just the role. It's the person. And the next time we get together, I'm like, hey, that's PJ. I recognize him. And, we chatted about this after the game that wasn't game related. But it always starts with that framework of the game. Of in Clocktower terms, the puzzle that I'm trying to solve.
Right.
Whether I'm on the good team or I'm on the evil team, trying to take the puzzle apart as fast as I can.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, how about a time when I assume that you are almost always the storyteller? Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much almost all the time. The times that I am not the storyteller are usually when I'm at like a convention or something like that.
Sure.
Then I'm just a
Okay.
player. When we do host Clock Tower nights, especially when we were in St. Louis and we had more of a regular-ish group, I would have people who wanted to also storytell or they wanted to learn
Mhm.
how to storytell. And so what would happen is we'd usually play, 3, maybe 4 games of it in a night if we'd have people over. And so the first game or two, usually I would storytell. We've got new people learning. You want to have somebody experienced to know everything that's going on. So I would
Yep.
always storytell. And then we would get people who like, hey, I'm curious, or I want to story tell so you can play. It'd be one of the two things. And so
Mhm.
my wife has story told before, so I can get in the game and play. I've got friends who have done the same thing. And then others who are just curious, like, will co-story tell a game.
Right.
So you and I might co-story tell a game just so you kind of get the ropes, and then you're like, okay, yeah, that's easy. I can do that. And then so that last game of the night, you'll story tell and I'll play.
Right.
So it kind of bounces back and forth. But yeah, most of the time I'm the storyteller just because we usually have new players in the circle and it's just
Mhm.
easier to have. I trust myself to like run the game well enough and hopefully
Right.
answer those questions that the new players are going to have. Like I've ran enough games with new players that I know this is what's going to come up. These are the questions. These are the answers. This is how to guide them the best. So they have a good time. Like that's
Right.
really all that matters. Doesn't matter who wins or loses. It's just who has fun.
So, what about a situation where you, as a storyteller, have a player that is, whether it's a personality, whatever, they are struggling with that vulnerability? Because the reality is yes, it's a puzzle, but when you're playing this game, it's like your base assumption is that the person I'm lying to, the person I'm talking to, is lying to me, right? That
Yeah.
you have to assume everyone's the demon or the evil party, right? And then try to ascertain whether or not they're telling the truth based on what they reveal, etc. How have
hmm
you, if you've had this before, how have you dealt with players who really struggled with that part, the social
Yeah.
vulnerability, not the puzzle? Like they could understand
Yeah.
that, the fact that
Yep.
there's so much of the, yeah. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I've got two examples for you. The first is there's a role that exists in the game. There are these fabled roles. It's
Mhm.
basically just an extra rule that the storyteller can throw in that modifies the game in some way. One of these is called the revolutionary. The way that works is two players are known to be on the same team, and then you, as the storyteller, once during the game, can register one of them falsely to kind of help balance out that um, the puzzle for the rest of the people, keep the game balanced.
Okay.
But at its core, what this role does is, let's say PJ, you and Katie are coming to play Clock Tower, and
Okay.
for whatever reason, maybe it's because you guys are married, you guys are, partners. You don't want to lie to each other. You don't want to have that situation of, am I on the same team? Am I not on the same team? You're not comfortable with that aspect of the game, and so to help you with that, we throw the revolutionary in there, and then you guys are 100% on the same team. I make sure you get roles that are on the same team. One of you will reach in, pull a roll out, and then I'll reach in and grab a roll and I'll make sure it's the same team, hand it to the other person. Everybody else in the circle knows, hey, PJ and Katie are on the same team. You could be good, could be bad, doesn't matter. But you
Right.
two know 100% there is another player that I can trust um, in the circle. So that's one way around it to
Okay.
kind of help with that social stuff. And then I usually also throw in roles. There are some roles that um, gain information about other players, or you, as a storyteller, you can send a player to another person, giving them a ping on, you know, Jack or whatever. And so if I know there's a player who's more shy or isn't as comfortable, oftentimes I'll include them in a ping, like a washerwoman or something who sees a person as a specific role, or maybe I'll put that role in there to try and hopefully they'll pull that role. And if not, I'll direct the
Mhm.
washerwoman to them. So I kind of use the tools that you have as a storyteller to either make sure people are talking with people they know and trust, or 100% guaranteeing people are on the same side. So that's one
Right.
thing you can do. The game gives you some tools to kind of
That's
massage
good.
that a little bit and
Okay.
kind of get around the, hey, I don't want to lie to people. I don't feel comfortable with that.
Mhm.
And then on the flip side, let's assume I haven't done any of that. I
Okay.
goofed up. I didn't put the washerwoman in. I don't have
Okay.
the revolutionary in play. You didn't tell me that like you have social anxiety, and and then the game starts. You've got your role and you're sitting on the couch. Everybody else is up talking and you're just kind of sitting there. I can tell you're like hunching into your shell. I've had
Yeah.
this happen before. And whenever that happens, I go and talk to that person specifically and I'll say, "Hey, PJ, what's going on? Do you understand your role? Do you have questions about your role? Something that happened during the game?" And just kind of get a feeling for where they are. And then once you kind of know that, then I like to focus the game back to that puzzle aspect. Hey, you don't have to lie. I mean, I guess if you're on the evil team, you kind of have to, or I can kind of give you some ways around that of sorts.
Sorta.
That gets a little bit trickier.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
but if you're on the good team, you don't have to lie. Like there's really no, there are reasons to lie. It protects your role, and
Yep.
we're not going to get into game strategy, but
Exactly.
going back to the social stuff, if I'm uncomfortable or if I'm noticing somebody who's uncomfortable with that aspect of the game, for me, I love the puzzle aspect of the game. I
Mhm.
think that's my favorite part of it.
Right.
That's what sets it above Secret Hitler or you know One Night Werewolf or Mafia or any of
Y
those other games is because it has that puzzle aspect. It's not just me saying, "Hey, I'm a villager, don't kill me." You can verify that. When that player is kind of in their shell, maybe I'll explain their role a little bit more and say, "Hey, this is the information, the pieces of the puzzle that you hold. You should go and share that and just
Mm.
talk about
Yeah.
that piece of the puzzle and try and find the next piece." And so I guess those are the two things that I do. If I know a player is going to have those issues, maybe isn't as comfortable in that situation before the game, there's some setup stuff that I can do to minimize that. And if I am caught off guard during the game, I can pull them aside, chat with them, little conversation, and then focus them back to the puzzle aspect of the game. Uh, yeah.
I like that. I like that a lot. One of the things that I'm constantly reminded of as a member of the human race, as an academic, as an archivist, as a historian, and as a gamer,
Yeah.
right? Is like humans, we're not computer programs, right? We come in
No.
all shapes and sizes, and we bring all of our baggage to the table or the circle, as it were, if you're playing
Yeah. Yep.
Clock Tower.
Yep.
So and the thing that I like, while this is not a favorite game of mine, one of the things that I do love about Blood on the Clock Tower is that it does bring people together. And
Hmm.
I'm really glad I didn't know about the revolutionary and whatnot. I didn't know that it had rules built in to help address some of the things. Now I know
Yeah.
you have to know ahead of time. I think that's
Yeah.
brilliant. I didn't know that. But that it has, the designers had enough forward thinking to say, hey, there may be people who are uncomfortable with this aspect, and we can
Hmm.
address that in a way that doesn't just
Yeah.
sabotage the game for everyone else. I get that, right? Like I have real troubles with lying and deception. I struggle with more trader mechanic games than social
Sure.
deduction, but I will tell you one of my quick stories, which ended up
Yeah.
nurturing a friendship. I was playing a character in Blood on the Clock Tower, and I don't remember who I was playing, but my character was mad or drunk. I don't know. Like, I thought I was one role, but I was really another role.
Mm. Yep.
Okay, so you know what I'm
Yeah, that would
talking
be, you
about.
would be the drunk. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So my good friend, who I love dearly, who I would die for, was a storyteller and tells me that I am this role.
Oh
So the
yeah.
game starts with the storyteller, the one
Yeah.
guy I can
The one
trust.
guy you're supposed to trust.
I'm supposed to trust, lied to me and told me that I'm this role. And so I played the role. Now,
Yeah.
as it turned out, I played the role that I thought it was beautifully. So I was
Yeah.
told. But, my team ended up losing all this other stuff. And most people were fine with it. I was really upset. I was like, this game started with you lying to me.
Yeah.
And I played my entire game, and the other problem is it was remote, so
Yeah.
I don't have a copy of the game. I don't have all the rules, right? So it's a little different. It's not a bad game
Yeah.
remote. It's the only way I've ever played it was remote. I've never played it in
Sure.
person. So
Yeah.
I was really upset. But my friend, to his credit, he reached out to me after it was all over. He's like, "What's going on?" And I told
Yeah.
him, and then when he explained to me being the drunk and what all that means within the game, I was like, okay, I now understand. So here's my personal problem, and it's not a problem with you or the game. This is a thing
Yep.
about me, and our friendship's only grown from there, and we've just become closer as a result. But yeah, I was like, I was mad.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. When I'm storytelling with new players, I mean, we always hit drunkenness
Mhm.
and poisoning because uh, I focus on the puzzle aspect, and so when I'm teaching it, I
Sure.
focus on that, and then I say, but little
Mhm.
asterisk there on that info you're going to get,
Yeah,
it may not be true, so
may
you're
not be
going to have to
true.
kind of figure it out. And I think by prefacing that, I haven't had a player with the same story that you just described, like they haven't had that, but I
Yeah,
have had players at the end of the night say, had a good time, not going to play it again. It's just not for me.
sure, sure.
Most people have a great time with it, but I know there are players who don't, for
Hmm.
one reason or another. Bad game experience, they don't like the lying aspect, they don't like the length
Right,
of it, whatever.
right,
XYZ, everybody's their own person. So,
right.
yeah.
Because we want to, at the end of the day, we want to nurture a positive sense of community, right? I know that the
Mhm.
L and feel is laughs, but I think that kind of broader as we want to encourage positive community, and so you got to be sensitive to those things, or be self-aware enough to know that you have a problem with, right? Like I know, right? Like I
Yeah.
will I will not play Blood on the Clocktower. Just I won't do it. I'll politely excuse myself if it's going on. If I find myself in a situation where everyone I'm with wants to play it, I understand the game as a
Yeah.
seasoned gamer. I understand, and having played, I understand the game, and I'll be like, okay. Also, I've been the drunk, and I've succumbed to madness. Madness freaked me out too. I
Oh, yeah.
was a role,
Yeah.
and then my role changed, but I didn't. And if I reveal that I'm mad, I instantly
Yep.
die, and that once happened to
Yeah.
me. But I didn't understand it because again, I'm playing remotely, and it wasn't
Yeah.
it wasn't explained perfectly. So now I understand, and I can be like, okay, well, I will. Now, the other problem is because I don't like lying, it means I'm not good at it.
Yeah.
So I will. I mean, I'm not gonna play Blood on the Clock and be like, oh, hey guys, I'm the poisoner or the demon or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna do that, but it might mean that I may inadvertently screw up because I'm not a good liar, and that can
Yep.
happen. But yeah, so it's a fascinating game. I'm fascinated by it because it allows for moments and encounters that could nurture community in very real ways that just a shared experience on a table might not, because it allows for more vulnerability. And I think that vulnerability is key to connections.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's one of the reasons I love the game so much, and really just gaming in general,
Yeah.
is the games that you play that stick with you. It's a story, something happens in the game, and like years down the road you're thinking back to like that one time when we played X game and Sally did this one thing and it was awesome. We get those moments in I've had those moments in Clocktower, I've had them in Cosmic, and almost every game that I've played there's some little thing that sticks around, and next time you
Mhm.
pull the box lid off, it's like, oh, I remember that experience. And that's what I want to have again for like this game
Right.
is I want to have that same community and laughing and having fun and just whatever that little inside joke is that happened from
Absolutely.
the previous game.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell me
Yeah.
really quickly about so your third event that had a larger group that went beyond the player count. You did an unmatched tournament at your house?
We did.
Mm.
So we actually hosted this at Billy and Annie's apartment. This
Oh.
was back in, I think, just after college. We had graduated, we were still living in St. Louis. And so we got together as a group of their friends, a group of our friends. Once again, we're mixing all kinds of people. And to keep it fun, think we'll say half the people had played Unmatched before. The other half had never heard of the game, didn't know
Mhm.
anything about it. They just knew, hey, they liked hanging out with us and they were coming over for something. And so Billy put together this Google form, a kind of quiz that we use to randomly assign the characters beforehand. And so the
Okay.
questions were anything like, would you rather be a villain in a story or a hero? And, something like that to kind of, do you like history or do you like fantasy to kind of, because
Yeah.
Unmatched has people from history, it's got legends, it's got literature. I mean, it's got IP. I mean, it's got everything all over the
Mhm.
place. So he sent out this questionnaire that has that kind of stuff. And he had just had his wisdom teeth out. So the last question, I think, was rate your scale 1 to 10 on how well you would take care of somebody who just had their wisdom teeth out. And like, that was one of the metrics that he used to like assign characters. And so, everybody showed up. We taught the game and then just dove right in. And the first round was kind of long, rough, and had questions as people were kind of working out the kinks. And then
Mhm.
after that, people fell into a groove, and we're just playing. The girl who won the tournament had never played before, not really a gamer,
Nice.
which was awesome. Sucked for me who lost in the finale, but it was great for her. And it was great to see that, hey, somebody who has never played before, isn't really a gamer, can have fun with this game, have a
Right.
good time, and win and do good. And then that specific Unmatched tournament was just single elimination. And once you lost, then we just started playing games off on the side. So they were
Okay.
playing, some party games, just something fun. And so they would kind of check in. But really, we started as an Unmatched tournament, and then it kind of shifted into continuing the tournament. But then we're also just having a party game night, normal game night of sorts on the
Nice.
side. And so that worked really well. I'm planning on hosting another Unmatched tournament here in Denver. I've got some friends who are interested and have played before, and it'll be that same kind of group of people, the mix of people who've played before, people who haven't. And I'm going to do stuff differently. Definitely going to have like a practice round before the actual like
Mm.
thing starts. And I'm toying with
Sure.
some other ideas. There's all this planning that goes into it, but that was probably the simplest of our events that we've done. It was just a 5-minute teach of a game, and then that takes half hour to play, and then boom, here's a single elimination tournament. And from each of those things, you learn a little bit of something that you take to the next event that you plan.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So we're in a period of we've been talking about it till we're blue in the face. We're in a period of
Yeah.
fear and anger amidst a trade war, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of
Yeah.
possibility, a lot. So the thing that's happening, we all know it, is either designers and publishers are closing their doors. It's unfortunate. Or bigger designers, bigger publisher houses are withholding their inventory for Americans until they can figure out what's
Mm-hmm.
going to happen, right? I get it.
Yep.
To each their own, they got to do that. So what that means is us as Americans, we may be getting fewer and fewer new games, so we have to go back to revisiting all these beauties on our shelves, right?
Exactly.
So, what final thought, what piece of advice do you have to anyone who's considering having a bigger event, that's beyond the player count? Any thought that you want to share before we end the episode?
Yeah, I've got kind of 3 points I think that you need to think about when you're trying to host one of these gaming events. The first is choose something that you're passionate about. something that you have enthusiasm for, PJ, if you were going to host a Blood on the Clocktower night, it probably wouldn't go so well because
No,
you aren't a fan of Blood on the Clocktower. It's just
right,
not who you are. If
right,
I'm trying to host a Cajun gumbo night, like that's not going to go well either. I don't have the skills to cook that. So you're going to come over and you're going to be probably, run to the bathroom and be like, this is terrible. Let me get out of here. So you have to pick something that you're,
right.
passionate about, because your passion for the thing is going to overflow, and then everybody else will have a good time. Like the
I
Board
will
Game Olympics
say,
event. Yeah, go
I
ahead.
will say that if you're going to host a Blood on the Clock Tower, I will happily come and just cook gumbo for everyone and then watch
Perfect.
them.
That
I'm I'm
that would be
happy
a
to
great.
I'm happy to do that. It's all about hospitality, my friend.
That'd be perfect.
Anyway, so go ahead. Number two, your
Yeah,
number 2 point.
yeah. So number one, got to be passionate about whatever you're doing.
Mhm,
Number two, you need to have the ability to adapt. Know that things aren't going to go the way you plan. For Clock Tower, it's a player count specific game.
mhm,
Any game that is player count specific. The Board Game Olympics event that we did, players were coming late, leaving early. You need to prepare for things aren't going to go perfect. And so have a little backup plan in place. Don't get all flustered. Just know things are going to go wrong. Adapt. It's going to be great. A lot of the people who, probably everybody who came to those events, didn't see the behind the scenes stuff that where I put together a script beforehand for 8 players, 9 players, 10 players, in case we had one person show up or one person bring an extra friend or not come or something. And they didn't realize that, hey, I just scrapped the second half of my Board Game Olympics schedule because time was running long. We had a
right.
longer dinner. It's okay. Like they still had a good time. So be passionate about whatever you're doing. It's going to overflow to the people who are there. Adapt. No things are going to go wrong, but it's okay. It's all right. And then lastly, name tags. Have name tags. It just makes things a lot easier. Say it over and over again. And then I'll throw in one bonus thing that I got
Okay.
from Tabletop Bellhop. He
Mhm,
hosts game nights up in, I believe, Canada, um, once a month or so at a local pub, and he makes these game night menus. He has people who are
mm,
gamers, a lot of time people who are casual, and so they come in. He hands them a menu. He's got the stack of games there, and then they can read off the menu and be like, okay, do I want a 2-player game? Do I want a 4-player game? Do I want a party game? Do I want a strategy game? And it's got little sections there. And so I've like taken some of that from his book and I've made my own menus for like when we have people over, and it's got 3 to 4 players,
wow.
appetizers, main course, desserts. And so just a little bit of planning ahead, if you're try out a menu for some event that you're hosting,
I
whether
love
it's
that.
a game night or whatnot. It just helps. The whole thing is to make sure people are having fun without that
Mm,
overhead of like, I don't want to be learning new rules and new people and new places and whatever. So if you can just trim that all down to, hey, my name tag's on, I can read yours. It says PJ. I now don't have to worry about that. Like, I don't really have to worry about learning the rules because it's like easy enough to learn. Maybe I've got some familiarity there. I'm just there to have fun. So
That
that's the whole thing.
that
Meet new
is
people, have fun.
that is really simplistic. Be passionate, be adaptable, and name tags. I mean,
Hmm. Yeah, that's it. That's all you need. That's all you
if
need.
you
Maybe a game, I guess.
oh yeah, maybe a game. If you need an acronym for that, pan, fry it in a pan.
Hey, and there you go.
Passionate, adaptable, and name tags. There you go, buddy.
Yeah.
So I love that. Tell everyone where they can find you on the socials and talk about hosting larger game events in their home.
Yeah, so if you have any questions at all, you can find me on Instagram at reengineer the game. We've got little underscores in between the words there. So reengineer underscore the underscore game. But if you just type in reengineer the game, you'll find us. And yeah, shoot me a DM. We're glad to talk, glad to help out with anything. I can help make a menu, help plan something, give you some ideas, show you some things that went wrong and some things that went well for us, and maybe they'll work for you too. So that next time you've got large players coming over, you got an idea, yeah, I'd love to hear about it. So
That's great. That's great. Guys, make sure to like and subscribe the video and podcast on YouTube, Spotify, all your streaming services. Leave comments. Jonathan and I will see them, particularly on YouTube. They're easily, anyone can see them. If you have any questions, again, reach out to myself or Jonathan. And remember, if you are trying to grow the circle and nurture the community, remember it is all about feel, right? You want it to be familiar, easy to learn, encourage interaction, and laughs. Jonathan, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, PJ. Thank you, PJ. It was great. Thank you.
Yeah. Take care, guys, and we'll see you next week.